Great Zeus, below on Earth, it is now the eve of the longest day.
Very well. Release the Kraken.
Okay, so here's the predicament. How do you title this video on YouTube without it sounding too clickbaity? You can't really do it because people go like, oh my god, what are you telling us? Oh my god, new information? What? No. What I have is speculation. What I have is a personal assertion that I think that coming up at either CitizenCon or the anniversary sale, probably CitizenCon, though at times it has been the anniversary sale. This is usually the time of year where we get the big ones. We've gotten the Pioneer, we've gotten the Hammerhead, we've gotten the Polaris. Those generally tend to come out towards the end of the year, usually at CitizenCon or the anniversary sale. And so, you know, I feel that CitizenCon is probably going to be a little bit more Squadron 42 oriented, hopefully. A lot of people waiting for information on that, and I feel that we are due. Obviously, I think we're overdue for some big information regarding Squadron 42, and hopefully it is going to be there. Now, of course, part of the big focus for that is also going to be the release of 3.3 and the Hammerhead getting out into players' hands. It's supposed to be like this big event, and so I'm going to lean with it's going to be the anniversary sale, and I think that the ship that it is going to be the Kraken. Now, what is your justification for this belief? Well, if you'll remember, last December is when we decided on what the next ship from Drake was going to be. And there were many contenders. There was the Corsair, which is as of yet an unseen idea, kind of a militarized pirate version of the Constellation somewhat. You know, heavy on guns, broadsides, that sort of thing, though it was just an idea in its nascent stage. Next up was the Starlifter, which actually ended up coming out before the ship that was voted in. This ended up becoming the Crusader Industries Hercules Starlifter. And then, of course, there was the Vulture, the ship that narrowly won the vote, and that was the small one-person salvage ship, which actually did very well for CIG. But there was another ship that was a very close contender and almost looked like it was going to take it at one point, and that is the Drake Kraken. So the Kraken was intended to be, the core of the idea was that it was a light scout carrier that carried a couple of freelancer-sized ships and maybe 8 fighters. I believe that was what they were aiming for with that ship. Feel free to correct me in the comments below. Now, there were other ideas thrown around, like a truck stop in space. Maybe it could have like a little bazaar. Maybe it could have, you know, this, that, or the other thing. But the core of the idea was the light scout carrier, right? So, for comparison, I'm going to use the Bogue light escort carrier from World War II. Now, it's a pretty small ship, obviously. It's about half-ish the size of the Enterprise from World War II. And it only carried about 12 fighters and 9 torpedo bombers, though different complements, different mission profiles, things could vary. It had 2 catapults, 2 elevators, one in the front, one in the rear, and basically it just escorted convoys for the most part across the Atlantic, though it was also used to ferry aircraft to and fro and equipment as was needed, and it would continue on in service for many years beyond that, though eventually they would all be sold and scrapped. So what do you have here? You have basically a stripped down carrier. You have only defensive armament, short range anti-aircraft weapons, nothing really all that frightening. I mean, a destroyer could rip this thing to shreds. Obviously, it's not designed to go into a slugfest with another warship. Its armament, in fact, is pretty much its aircraft. what it could deploy. That was what it was there for, to protect the convoys that it was sailing with and to hunt down, in this case, submarines, or perhaps to serve another mission should that arise. So I think that this is a good basis. I think that this is a good starting point to talk about what you could do with something like the Kraken, because if you look at it, it delivers the transport that you need for your ships. It delivers, a large interior space for the repair and the maintenance of those ships. And it also, deep down in the bowels of the ship, you could have the space that you need for living quarters, for the storage of goods, and maybe for a few shops or whatever, however CIG decides to build this thing out, whatever they decide to include within the ship. But also, because it lacks any real heavy armament, you could potentially bring the ship into the game or out to the community at a price point that makes it very attractive, something that makes people go like, oh, that's actually, that's something that I would actually want. That's something within reach. You could price this very aggressively if you basically sell it with the caveat that it isn't designed to go into combat. It is designed to project power. So this is designed to give you like a landing point for your ships as you're traveling out to that new space. This is not meant to be a frontline warship. This is a support ship, that sort of thing. If you do that and you use that as the reason why it's offensively and perhaps even defensively not very strong, then you can actually get it out there in people's hands at a price that they can afford. Now you can also say, oh, well, it's got two shields or whatever. One shield collapses, the other one takes over. It's defensively, it's very strong. But you could also go another direction with it. You could say that because it is built the way it is built, and it is built so sparingly in terms of actual expense and components and armament and all that, maybe it has a very small signature for a ship of its size, so it's very easy to hide if you want to hide it and use it as a kind of a jumping off point wherever you're going, and not have to worry about not having to worry too much about people tracking it down. It could be an interesting idea like that, and then it could also use that as its way in to a pirate fleet, because obviously if it's a big, bold military ship, it's going to stand out, people are going to see it, and it's not going to last too long. But if you kind of use it in a way, I don't want to say in a stealthy way, but in a stealthy way that is smart in how it is being operated, not something that is inherently a stealth ship, then I think it could also kind of fit within that role, and it would be something that would be very attractive to players. At its heart, what you want to kind of get to with a ship like this is, as people are starting to confront the reality of traveling between different planets within a solar system, or even to solar systems beyond the one that we're currently in, once we get to that point, people are kind of starting to pick up on the fact that, that's going to be a major undertaking. That's going to be a big investment of time and resources to do that. And whereas in the day in and day out, you may be more content to just hang around within, just a planet and it's the moons around it, and kind of go and do whatever you're going to do, whether it's missions, trading, mining, whatever, in that little area. But when you get together with your friends, let's say it's Saturday night, it's raid night, however you guys name it, you get together and you want to play together, you want to go out and you want to explore distant areas. But the problem is that getting there logistically could be a huge pain in the ass. But a ship like this can bridge that gap. It can help you bring the fighters that you might want as escorts along with you. It can help you bring perhaps smaller salvage ships along for the ride, things like that. You can use this as, that kind of vehicle to enable players who have smaller ships to kind of come along with the bigger ships and escort them and, kind of fulfill that role. And that, I think, if you kind of build the ship out that way, you're creating something that enables players in a lot of different arenas, and I think that that's inherently a good thing. And if you build it as more of a commercial and less of a, strictly speaking, military ship, and you kind of have an eye for kind of keeping the cost down, keeping it something that's very Spartan on the interior, very Drake, you could get it at a price point that would be very attractive to the community. So something that would work out obviously for CIG and something that would work out for the players as well. In the end, however, it's going to ultimately be CIG's idea, what they decide to go for and how they decide to, build out this ship. But this would be my jumping off point. This would be my start off point. I would look at something like this and I would say, this is where I need to hit, and let's go from here and, flesh this out and make this something that belongs in the Star Citizen universe. Now, ultimately, of course, I could be wrong and it could end up being something else entirely, but I feel that if I were to be compelled to lay down money on what the ship was going to be for the anniversary sale or, CitizenCon, that would be where my money would fall, is on the Kraken light escort scout carrier type idea. That's where I feel that we are going to see the next big ship. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in the Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.